Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sam. Subscribe and join the fam. If you watch my channel, know who I am, whatever, I have been a little MIA. And that is because I took the test that determines the rest of my life. A little dramatic, but like kind of true. If you don't know, I was in nursing school. I graduated in December of 2021 and I got a job. I started working it. I went through orientation. I'm currently still going through orientation, and I took my NCLEX last week, the 1st of February. So this video is going to be all about that, as you can guess and as you have read. I want to give all my tips and tricks and everything I studied, the notes I did, everything that just really helped me pass this NCLEX, because it was kind of traumatizing, may I say. You have this fear that you're not going to pass, that you're not doing enough, and you go into this test really not knowing a single thing about what is going to come to you. So I want to help ease your nerves a little bit and give my best tips and tricks. So first, I'll kind of go through my study schedule, what I decided to do, everything of that sort. As I said, I was kind of MIA for the last month or so of December. No, January. I think I posted one video. And I actually decided to just take a hiatus from everything. I had my family come up from Florida for Christmas and New Year's. And then after that, it was strictly my new job and studying. Those were my two top priorities. I knew that I needed to study like hardcore. So I basically, literally, I texted all my friends and I was like, hey, I'm sorry if I don't answer you a lot this month. I'm sorry if I don't see you, we don't hang out, whatever it is. Like, I promise I will see and spend time with you starting in January as long as I pass this test, but I just need to focus on this for now. My boyfriend, I still spent time with and everything. He still came over, but for the most part, I sat at my desk and I studied every free time that I had. I looked at a bunch of different videos just like this and looked things up on the internet and read these forums about how people studied, the questions they got, all of this stuff. And let me tell you, don't look super into it. Don't look into what all these people are doing and how they passed compared to what all these people are doing and how they did not pass if it's content based. Yes, listen to tips and tricks just like the video that I'm giving you, and you can kind of base it off that, but don't have someone say like, oh, this program was terrible and didn't work for me, because that program might work for someone else and not you, and they might have studied it only like 3 times that month, whereas someone else could have studied it every single day and done amazing. So sometimes take the advice lightly. But basically, I looked up a bunch of things and figured out what the best route for me to go was. I talked to a bunch of nurses I work with, see how they felt about it, and went from there. I actually had to get UWorld for my class and my last semester, and we had to do 1,000 questions by the time we graduated. So I already had that done, luckily. And I'll get to it in a minute, but I highly recommend UWorld or at least some sort of study program of this sort. Before I went into anything, I knew that I needed a study schedule. If I did not have a study schedule, I would not have gotten done what I got done. I would have gotten a couple things done here and there and then just said, that's enough for the day or something like that. But with this study schedule, I could check off what I got done, and I knew how much I needed to do that day in order to achieve my goal. So over here I have these 2 cork boards that sit right by my desk. I have my weekly schedule and I have my monthly schedule. This is the monthly schedule that I used for my study schedule, and I will take this off and bring it closer and show you in depth. So as I said, I used this whole monthly schedule for my study schedule, and then I used a weekly schedule to go a little further in depth in things. I can link it down below because I really like how this schedule looks. I just looked up monthly calendars starting with Sunday because my work week starts on a Sunday, not a Monday. So I wanted it to kind of go along like that. But I would say after you figure out the programs and the type of things you want to do to study, write out an in-depth study schedule. Like what things you're going to do, times of things that aren't study related. So you know those are kind of like a break time, times you're not studying, amounts of questions or amounts of time, whatever you need to get this done. I'm sorry for the lighting if it looks bad. It is actually 9 o'clock at night, so I can't make it any better. But this is the calendar that I printed off and kind of did my stuff on. I was crossing things off, but then I remembered I want to make this video, so I stopped doing that. So in the corner here, I have all of my color coding. I have work, UWorld, which is a program I studied with, Brainscape, which is flashcards I studied with online, Mark K, which are lectures that I used to study, and then personal kind of events that I knew I needed to take time off for. So as you can see, I just wrote every single day what I had to do, because January was the month that I was strictly studying since I took my FES February 1st. So I first went through, first and foremost, I wrote down all of my work days. I was in orientation, so I did my orientation 7 to 3, and then when I started my 12-hour shifts, I did these first because I knew that these days I could not spend excessively studying. I also went through and did my personal events that I had. I literally only had 2 that I scheduled, but I wanted to make sure I had those in so that I knew those days I also had a prior commitment. So then once I had my personal events and my work down, I could go through and kind of figure out how I wanted to study each day. I will go through all these programs and everything in just a minute, but let me tell you first how I scheduled it. So the pinks are my UWorld, and those are practice questions. I kind of started off slow and I then progressed towards the end. So I started off with only about 25 questions a day for these, 45. The weekends that I wasn't doing anything, I went to about 100 questions. And then after 2 weeks of that, I went to 4 40s, which is 4 groups of 40 questions. So it was 160 in total. But how I determined how many I was going to do each day, so these ones obviously I worked on. I had an 8-hour work schedule, so I only did 25 questions a day, and I did it like during lunch or something like that. But then these days that I had the weekends free, I made sure I scheduled more questions because I had the whole day free. Same with these days that I wasn't working 12-hour shifts. And again, 2 100s, 2 100s, 4 40s. It got progressively more questions the closer I got to my test, which is this day. The green was flashcards, and I try to stick to this as much as I could, but I would do more or less on the day depending how I felt. But I did 25 cards on days I worked, 40 cards, and then I did more like 100 cards on the weekends. And these were just kind of to get my mind flowing, thinking of content, and kind of just taking a break from practice questions. And then lastly, the orange is the Mark K lectures. These are about, I'd say, 1 hour to 2 hours each, so I scheduled them according to the days that I had free. So the weekend, obviously, these weekends I had free, so I scheduled lectures. My 8-hour shift, I did like a lecture afterwards. I also wrote in these review days so I could review all my notes for the lectures I already went over. So those are kind of the ways that I figured out my study schedule after I figured out what programs and things I wanted to use to study. You can see I wrote like numbers of flashcards, the amount of questions. I added review days in. I made sure that I wrote down my work schedule and the days or the times that I was working, so I knew that those times were kind of blocked off for studying. And then as each day goes on, you cross it off and just make sure you at least get close to what you planned on doing. I know things can happen, things come up, you can't get it done, that's fine. But for the most part, I would try to stick to it. I think that this study schedule helped me tremendously just stay on track. I have my laptop right here, and I'm going to screen record on my laptop and just show you the 3 main things that I use to study. And those 3 main things are UWorld practice questions, Mark K lectures, and Brainscape for NCLEX flashcards. I would highly suggest all of these practice questions. These are great for kind of getting your mind flowing, seeing what kind of practice questions are good, just getting in the habit of doing these practice questions as much as you can. And the rationales are amazing, so you're just learning why things are right versus wrong. The Mark K lectures kind of tell you how to answer questions rather than the content of the questions. And as I would say that maybe not every lecture is needed, I do think they were helpful in thinking how to work through each question, and it made me feel a lot more comfortable. And then the flashcard. Did I feel flashcards or practice questions in the beginning? I meant UWorld practice questions in the beginning if I didn't say that. Flashcards are kind of just to go through the content one more time and see like, okay, I really know these versus I really don't know these, and it's like very simple terms of things. I will talk to you guys while I put my computer on the screen. So this is what my UWorld opens to when you go into the question bank. They have tons of different kinds of programs that you can buy. Everyone's a single different price. We had to get a certain one for my class. That is why I have the one that I do. If I click on this, you can see I have a MedMath one and I have a regular question bank. Personally, I got 0 questions of any type of math on my NCLEX. So I would not recommend the MedMath one. I don't think spending the money on that is worth it. But the question bank, absolutely. They also have, I don't have it on here anymore because they expired, but they were 100 question pre-tests, kind of to determine how good or bad you're going to do on the NCLEX. But those were really helpful. Just some extra questions to go through and kind of get the test environment. So when you go on here, they have create test. You can do tutor mode or you can do timed. I never did timed just because the NCLEX nowadays, you have, 75 questions minimum, 145 maximum, and I think you get 5 hours. So like that's a lot of time to do those questions. Tutor mode is, what does this do? If you answer a question and press submit, it gives you the rationale right away. Whereas if you take tutor mode off, it gives you the rationale once you're done with however many questions you decided on doing. So it gives it to you at the end. I would recommend turning tutor mode on when you first start answering questions and then turn it off like the week or 2 before you take your test. So they have question modes. These are unused, incorrect ones that you got wrong. Marked ones, I think I accidentally marked one, to be honest. I never did that. All of them. And then custom. I never used custom. I don't know what that is, but it's an option. They have subjects. You can click that. Oh, you can click that to use all of the subject, or you can click on a certain one like adult health. And then once you click adult health, it will go down here and you can click on all the adult health sections. Like let's say you are not good at musculoskeletal and neuro and you want to do questions on just those. Or you want to do all the systems on adult health. Or you want to do all subjects, all systems. You really have free range to decide what types of questions you want to work on. And then down here, you just do however many questions you want. It gives you a max of 75 at once, which is the minimum that you could pass in in the NCLEX. So let me just go into one here and show you what it looks like. Okay, so it says I have mine in night mode right now, but it gives you the question, and then you pick some, you can cross things off if they're, like if you for sure know it's wrong, which is really nice, but I'm not even gonna read this. We're just gonna press next, whatever. So it'll give you a score. It'll give you the average score of the people who have taken it. Like this says percent correct. The other people that took it, that got it correct. 51%. I kind of base this off how hard or easy the question is. If it's 50% or so, it's kind of a medium style. If it's above 50% of people getting it right, it would be an easy question, and if it's less, it would be considered a hard question. This is good to know because when you're taking the NCLEX, you can kind of base which types of questions would be hard versus easy, because if you're getting a lot of hard questions, you're knowing you're doing good. So you can press review test. So once you open it up into the review section, it will show you the percentage of people who chose each answer. So obviously 51% of people chose the correct one, 27% chose this one, 12, 7, so forth. If you scroll down, it gives you, a bunch of them give you pictures and diagrams, which is great. And then if you go down, it gives you basically this whole rationale on why this answer is right and while all the other 3 answers are wrong. I think the rationales on UWorld are amazing, and that is why I specifically love this program. Also, the NCLEX, like the real NCLEX, looks identical to UWorld. The questions on it, the format, everything, identical. So when you go in, it's a lot less stress because you are comfortable in what you're seeing. You go test analysis and gives you your total correct, incorrect, which ones you skipped, answer changes, and then if you had more subjects and stuff going on here, like I only clicked one question, but it would give you all the subjects, all the systems, how many you got correct, how many you got incorrect, so you can kind of see your strengths versus weakness areas. So if you click over here on previous tests, you can see all these tests that you took beforehand. It shows you the subject of each one, the systems of each one, what question pool, if it was all, if it was your incorrect, your mode, and your date. So obviously this one doesn't count. So I took 160 total tests before I took my NCLEX. And then over here is your score. So I got 77%, 73, 50, 80, 65, 53, whatever. People say getting 50 and up is usually pretty good. That means you are getting majority of the questions right, which is what you're looking for on the NCLEX. But as you can see, when I scroll down to the beginning, when I was in September, October, the beginning of my semester, I was only getting 40s, some 30s, everything like that. So if you click on performance over here, you can see your total. So my total, all the questions I took, I finished the whole entire question bank, which was like 2,000 something questions. Oh, right here, 2,182 questions. Out of all those, I got 56% right. So a little over half. Usually, again, people say above 50 is usually pretty good. You can click on reports, and this breaks it down subject and system, incorrect versus correct, and then your rank. So 57th percentile, 68th percentile. If you click on it, it goes further in depth in each system. And for these, I actually put up an Excel sheet and input all my scores every single week into it. So that way, every single week, I could go through and see what I was doing better or worse on, and I would base my questions around that. So back to this. You can also look at a graph. I don't think I've ever used this, but you can see performance by day and performance by test. You can search certain questions and keywords if you have something you want to look up. There's notes if you wanted to, it's almost like a little sticky note so you could look back on what you were thinking or certain ideas. And then flashcards I use quite frequently. You can highlight an area in the rationale of a question and it'll give you the option to make it into a flashcard. So I did those on subjects and things that I did not know very well. That is how UWorld looks. UWorld is something I highly recommend. It looks exactly like NCLEX and it helps so much because of the rationales. Mark K lectures. All I did for these was search them on Google, and some of them I wrote notes on, some of them they have on Spotify, and I just listened to on my drive 2 places. I would highly recommend this lecture 12, which is prioritization and delegation. I think that one helped a lot, but if you have time to watch the others, I would also recommend that. Again, he goes over how to answer questions and how to look at questions and pull important information out of them in order to answer correctly rather than major content. But I think that was very useful and kind of it de-stressed me when I was looking at questions. I was like, okay, I recognize that and remember him talking about it. What do I need to pull out in order to get this question right? So the last thing that I used frequently was Brainscape Flashcards. I got from, I believe it was NCLEX Tutor. If you go onto her website, she has a book. I felt better I would do the flashcards. They are called Nugget Pages is the book. She also has these flashcards that you can buy, and they are through Brainscape, which is a flashcard program. So these are kind of what they look like. It's basically things taken from the book put into flashcard form. Here's my Brainscape. Here's what it would look like if you bought it. I paid for it monthly, which was only $10 a month. So I literally only studied for a month. I think a month and a week. So I only paid that $10, which is honestly an amazing price for this. So over here on the left, you have all these different subjects, again, just like UWorld. And then within each subject, you have all these systems or different topics of things. As you can see, I did not do everything. I did a bunch just to see how they were. And then I mainly did things I was struggling on. But you can press study and do all of them, or you can go do certain ones like this position and just do flashcards on positioning. So they have these diagrams like these, and you review the answer, tells you the answer, and once you see the answer, you can press down here if you knew it not at all, if you knew it somewhat, or if you knew it perfectly. So over here, it'll kind of give you these points, and if you keep saying, oh, you didn't know this one at all, it'll give you it multiple times, whereas the one you know perfectly, maybe it'll give you one more time just to make sure or something, but it will kind of adjust to your learning, which I think is nice because it's basically like the NCLEX. I thought this was very useful. Again, it has tons of different subjects and topics, and it bases everything off of your own learning experience, which is very helpful and personalized. So that is everything that I really used to study, program-wise, study schedule-wise. I'll give you a little bit of my own tips and tricks from my personal experience. I finished in 78 questions, and it freaked me out because the minimum is 75, so I went a little past that, and it showed off at 78, and I was like, I either did really good or really bad. Like, I don't know. I didn't have the worst feeling afterwards. Like, I didn't go to my car and bawl my eyes out, which was a plus for me. So I kind of went in feeling confident since I did all my UWorld questions, I did all the lectures, I wrote the notes, I did flashcards. I felt decent. I wouldn't say the best, but I was decent. I just knew that I did as much as I could do, honestly. Like, I wasn't slacking off. I studied hardcore for a month. Like, I just knew that I did the best that I could. honestly, and that's all that you can do. I finished in 78. I actually found out my score the very next day, super fast. I was incredibly surprised. I thought it was going to take weeks, but they sent it to me by email. You can also look it up on Lara, L-A-R-A. Wait, maybe that's just Michigan. I don't know. Whatever your state licensing website is, you can look it up on there. You can look up like registered nurses, look up your name, and it might not be loaded or anything yet, but if you have your license, your name will show up. But about the questions, I kind of had a good feeling afterwards because of how my questions went. So while I was taking it, you may or may not know the NCLEX bases the easy or hard questions off how you're answering. So we'll start with multiple choice, and you answer those. If you're getting them right, they will move to harder questions. If you're getting them wrong, it will kind of stay at the easier style questions. What you want to pass is to move to those hard questions. Those hard questions, as you will hear in the Mark K lectures, they don't necessarily matter if you get them wrong or right all the time. It just matters that you're making them to the hard questions because you're getting the easy ones right. And I promise you, you'll be able to tell the hard from the easy ones. Hard ones are also multiple choice ones. So if you're doing it right and answering questions right, you'll have a couple multiple choice. You'll move to select all that apply. Did I say that before? I meant select all that apply are the hard ones. So you have multiple choice. If you answer them right, you move to select all that apply. If you get it wrong, you'll probably go back to multiple choice questions. If you get it right, you'll keep going, select all that apply, select all that apply, select all that apply, select all that apply. So like I got 5 or 6 select all that apply, and then I would get like a super, super hard one that I most likely got wrong, and it would go back to multiple choice. So I was like, crap, okay, I think I got that wrong. Now I'm gonna have to get a bunch right again. So you can kind of base how you're doing off of that. It's kind of stressful and nerve-wracking to do it like that, so if that's gonna make it worse for you, try not to. But for me, it was helping. It made me feel a lot better knowing I was getting hard questions in a row. It doesn't matter how many you answer in, whether it's 75 or 145, it doesn't matter. You could do 145 and pass easily. It just means that you are taking longer amount of time to get to those hard questions, whereas if you pass in 75 or 70 amount of questions, it was taking you a shorter amount of time to get to those hard questions, but it doesn't mean you did not pass if you take longer. I personally did not take breaks. You can hide your time and your question number in the corner. I hid them all because it would stress me out. So I didn't know that I was only at that many questions, or I was only an hour and a half in. So I didn't take any breaks. I was just distracted. I was just going through them, trying to do my best to answer the questions, and I didn't take any breaks. I would suggest you take breaks if you're getting tired, if you're getting uncomfortable, if you're just feeling very like mentally exhausted from it. Take a break. You can take a break, you can go and have a snack, you can go and have water. As long as you're outside the room, you can take a walk. Doesn't matter how long, anything of that sort. You just have to scan your palm in and out to make sure it's you. That's it. Your breaks do count towards your time, so obviously you don't want a crazy amount of time, but I would recommend taking breaks. I wish I took a break during mine. I was just so distracted and focused that I didn't realize it. Everyone says not to study the day before. I studied hardcore the day before, I'm gonna be honest. Like, if I didn't study, I think it would have made me feel worse and more nervous. Whereas for some people, they felt less nervous. They wanted to relax that day. I actually relaxed 2 days before. And then the day before, I went through a bunch of rationales. I went through flashcards. I looked up videos on YouTube. I did a lot. But that's what made me comfortable. I know myself, and if I didn't study the day before, I would have freaked out more. So I would leave that up to you, honestly. Like, if it's gonna make you more nervous and just wreck, don't do it. But do get a lot of sleep. I studied my test for the afternoon at 1 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. because I'm not a morning person, and if I took that test at 7 a.m., my mind would not be working yet. So I would take the test depending on your schedule and how you like it. If you're a morning person, take it in the morning. If you're not, take it in the afternoon. I only took a month to kind of hardcore study. By that last week, I was so burnt out. I could not have studied more. Like, I was over it. I was done. I couldn't do it any longer. So there are some people that study like 2-3 months before they take their test, and I personally would not recommend that. I think you should take it within a month and a half of graduating college, and everything's fresh in your mind. You are learning these things, and if you take too long, you're going to get burnt out and you're going to forget the textbook version of things, because if you go to work, you're going to learn personal experiences, which is not what the NCLEX is about. The NCLEX is a perfect world, perfect hospital. You have best amount of supplies. You're never short-staffed. Like, do not think of personal experiences in the NCLEX, or else you will get the question wrong. Think of textbook stuff. I'm trying to think of any other tips that I have, but honestly, I would just take a month and a half, study hardcore every free time you have. Take a couple breaks in between questions or lectures, whatever you decide to do. Complete as many things as you can before you take the test, and you'll go in at least somewhat confident and know that you did as much as you could. If you end up failing, I would go through more practice questions. I would see a tutor, go through with someone real, in person, online, whatever. I know it's COVID, and go through, try to remember the questions you got on the NCLEX and what was frustrating you, what was stressing you out, what you did not know, things like that. I will tell you, the questions on there are very, very, very random. I would say I only knew or studied like half of the topics on those questions. Just know you went through however many years of school to get this nursing degree. You can pass this test. I promise you. You guys are more than welcome to comment or DM me on Instagram or even TikTok, whatever you want. Ask me questions about it. I'm not perfect. I freaked out about not passing too, and these are just things that got me through and things that helped me. So if you have any questions or want advice, feel free. But I'm going to end this video here, and I will see you in my next one.